Hello, and you are listening to The Book Was Better, the podcast where we talk about the book of the film. I'm Luke.
I'm Courtney.
And this week we're talking about Blade.
Hey you, put down the popcorn and turn on the light. It's gonna be alright, my friend. In the end, take my hand. Trust me, the book was better.
Monosyllables don't sound as dramatic, do they?
Blade.
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 Just blade.
Blade.
Yep.
Talking about blades.
Yep.
The sharp.
Knives. Katanas. Axes.
Sporks.
Sporks.
You like a sharp spork?
Pretty sharp sport, yeah.
Why doesn't Marvel have a hero called Spork?
You know what? There probably is. In the infinite multiverse, there's probably a spork.
He's like he can do two things instead of one.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, he fights werewolves and vampires.
I feel like Emma Frost is a bit of a spork because it was like mental powers and then suddenly it was, and my skin can turn into diamonds as well.
Well, yeah, but a lot of mutants have secondary mutations, which is just cheating.
Is sporkerific.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're
Sport
back!
mutants.
What a great return. So I've been away for 2 weeks. Not physically away. I've been here. I've been
You
mentally...
were in the astral plane!
mentally away from the show. So apologies to everybody that I haven't done Book Was Better. I've been having this sort of personal Book Was Better crisis where reading the book has become such a burden and such an interruption to some very busy weekends that next week is unfortunately not much better because of Supernova, that I just haven't had the motivation. I think this happens a couple of times a year probably, but don't panic if the show dips in and out or anything like that, because I will always announce if I was going to put this thing on hiatus permanently or whatever, or for an extended period of time. It's just a bit spotty at the moment while I try and get my shit together.
You're a playboy billionaire who goes off on adventures. Sometimes we don't know where you are for a week. You might be on your yacht. Who knows?
Looking for artifacts.
Yes.
So, luckily, what has gotten us back this week is the fact that you, Courtney Coulson, have read the book. You took on the burden.
Yes.
You've done a huge amount of research and notes and things. I have saved myself. I haven't read any of it. I'm really looking forward to learning all about Blade along with the listeners today. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to do everything in my power to derail you as much as possible. But this is really great. A great way for me to come back because I didn't have to read a book,
yes.
which was wonderful. But also,
you're the Nick Fury and I'm the Coulson. I do all that research and hard stuff. You don't have to worry about that. You just make the decisions. You make the show happen.
I'm going to come in with my eye patch and, and read your report live on... not live for us.
Well, it's live, yeah.
Otherwise, we'd be dead.
Yes.
Like Blade.
Undead.
Is he dead?
Well, he's a daywalker, you see, and we'll get into that later.
Okay.
So, but yes, obviously, we're talking about vampires, and once again, I get to be the vampire specialist for our show, which I always enjoy.
What makes you a vampire specialist, do you think? Like, if you had to... It's a job interview.
Yes.
I'm looking for a vampire specialist.
Yes.
And I say, what's your key bit of experience here?
It's pretty much a lot of research, aka consuming a lot of media, and then... actually I am writing my own story about pseudo-scientifically realistic vampires. So, that's my experience.
Consuming a lot of knowledge and information, not consuming a lot of human blood.
Yes.
Or animal blood.
No, because you can't be a vampire expert if you are yourself a vampire. That's kind of cheating, you see.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sure.
So
you can't be a master chef if you're a chef.
No, that's different, you see.
Okay, alright. Yeah,
yes,
okay, sure.
Because if you're okay. So I think Blade, along with Underworld, were movies that really drew me to the whole supernatural genre to begin with. And it's probably why I prefer the pseudo-scientific variety of monsters to the magical ones.
I prefer the pseudo-sexy ones.
Yes.
Or the, just outwardly sexy monsters.
Yes.
What about Vampirella? Has there been a Vampirella movie?
I don't think so, but I've seen some ridiculous cosplays of that.
Yeah, here is a vampire with a piece of string, just very, very loosely providing a border between the two land masses, which are her butt cheeks.
Yes.
And no border patrol there at all, I don't think. I think anything can pass freely in between those things.
But she's got the little cape, so just to cover her butt, you know.
Do you think that if a werewolf looked at her from behind, her full moon would be enough to transform them?
Perhaps.
Could be.
Well, in Being Human, just the picture of a full moon causes a werewolf to transform.
What about a circle? What about a white circle on a black piece of paper?
Oh, shit.
What about, like, the opening of a James Bond film before he walks into the iris?
You walk in, you're so excited to
Yeah.
see the latest James Bond.
You're like, Spectre, this should be good. And then suddenly, you're running around like a maniac in the theatre. And they come in and say, hey, no dogs, because it's dark in there. They think you're a dog. Kick you out that side exit.
That is actually racist to call werewolves dogs.
Well,
yeah.
that's why you're the expert.
Yes. But yeah, there seem to be... Blade might actually be the first of these movies that took vampires into this... very much into the action genre, kind of realistic, kind of grounded, until it decides it doesn't want to do that anymore. It's kind of, it started that whole underworld and all those sorts of things. And
it was really the beginning of the Marvel movies that were not just for little kids.
Yeah. And it's funny, there is no Marvel written on this anywhere, I don't think. Even on the tiny, tiny writing at the back, there's no, this belongs to Marvel. I don't think a lot of people were aware that he's a Marvel character.
Those people are dumb bums.
Yeah. I forgot what I was going to say now.
Well, you got pages of notes here.
I know.
Just say something from there.
Because it's there and I can't quite see it.
Well, I'm going to jump around because I'm a reactor. I don't know what you've written. That's the thing.
Okay, I should remember. No, there was a point to that. Oh, yeah.
I told you I was going to derail you.
Yeah, I know. Oh, you've done it. You've ruined it now.
Just worry about that bit when you get there.
So,
tell me, look, did you see this in the movies?
No, I didn't, obviously, because I was only 13 when Blade Trinity came out. So
You say that.
At
At the beginning of this book, he's dedicating it to his 9-year-old son, who was 4 years younger than you.
Damn, he's a really cool dad. I didn't get to see those sorts of movies until I was much older.
This is a film that begins with porn star Tracy Lords being showered with blood.
Yes.
And he's like, hey, slugger. Hey, little buddy. Hey, little guy, I dedicate this book to you. Doesn't Blade call everyone a motherfucker as well? And
Yes.
stuff? And yeah.
My swag count for the year will definitely go up for just this book. But the dedication at the beginning is actually really cute. I will say that. So, you're a good dad, Mel Odom.
Well, the jury's out.
But yes, I do vividly remember buying the box set of DVDs from Blockbuster, the one near my house before it closed down.
Oh, that one.
Yeah. You know that one? Yeah.
Anyone who's listening who happens to be also drawing maps.
Yeah, so you know where I lived during my childhood.
Now, when you say the box set, do you mean Blades 1 to 3, or do you mean the TV series, which I never saw?
All three, and then I did watch Blade when that was on TV, so the Blade TV series when it was on TV, I should say. So, yeah, I'm just pointing out that the Blockbuster closed down because all Blockbusters are closed now, I think. There's no such thing anymore.
Their blocks have been well and truly busted.
Yes. But anyway, watching that at 15 years old, I instantly thought they were the coolest movies ever. Mm-hmm. And probably started my whole obsession that lasts till this day of the
Started
supernatural.
your research, you went to the library!
So, yeah, holy crap, it's been nearly 10 years since I last saw it, which doesn't sound right at all. I feel old. But yes,
I'm very sympathetic there.
Yes, I'm ancient.
1998, this film.
Yeah, so I was 6. But it is interesting revisiting it and seeing how my opinions have changed and how this genre has evolved over that time as well.
Now, you mentioned the author. This is Mel Odom, who is familiar to me.
Yeah, he's written a hell of a lot of things. 140 published books, mostly sci-fi and fantasy.
Each one better than the other, depending on how you line them up on your shelf.
Yes. He's written a few Buffy novelizations, which you may have covered on Book Was Better
I think
TV.
that's probably where I know the name, yeah.
And yeah, honestly, he's clearly passionate about the source material, which made the book a pretty enjoyable read. It's nearly 350 pages long, And I read it essentially cover to cover. Usually with these bigger books, you kind of just skim to the good bits. Well, he does the typical thing of where there's a lot of padding at the beginning, and then he rushes through the last half, which is good, because that's when I started to not give a shit anymore. Yeah.
And I believe this is probably what you wanted to talk about when we talked about Marvel.
Wolfman. Yeah.
So he was... Now, this is ironic. We have a vampire created by a wolfman.
I was going to make that joke. Yes, that's what I wanted to get to. Yes. So, he was created by Marv Wolfman, although Stanley probably claims that he created him because he does that with most characters.
Maybe Stan Lee created Marv Wolfman by biting him on a moor.
And it's I did actually have to look up Blade's comic book backstory, because I didn't know anything about him, because he doesn't really interact with the rest of the Marvel universe. He's sort of off in his own little niche.
Yeah.
So first of all, his original costume is outrageous. He kind of looks like Jefferson Twilight in Venture Brothers.
Which is kind of a Blackula riff,
but with brighter colours. Like, he wears bright green and yellow, which definitely says, I fight vampires.
Definitely says, I am going to win Aussie gold at the Olympics.
Yes. Also, his backstory is wildly different. For one, he's British, so
I
clearly...
say, vampires.
So clearly, should have been played by Idris Elba.
Oh, perfect.
Yes, could you imagine him saying, some motherfucker's always trying to ice skate off hill? Make my life.
Well, Marvel, if they own the character at the moment, let's make this happen.
Yeah, let's do another Netflix series. Also, there was no Whistler, which is Chris Christopherson's character. He actually came from a Spider-Man cartoon at the time. The producers liked him as a mentor figure. Thing is, though, Blade already had a mentor in the comics who was an old black guy named Jamal Afari. So, other than race, I don't see why they changed him, just saying.
In the cartoons, did Whistler only communicate in whistles, just like how Bumblebee only talks through the radio?
How did you know?
Yeah.
So,
I know how things work.
Blade was born Eric Brooks in 1929, so he's a lot older than...
Oh, damn, he's old!
Yeah, he's old as balls. His father, Lucas Cross, was a member of a secret society in Latveria, and he sent his pregnant wife Tara to England shortly before he was wrongfully imprisoned. She changed her name to Vanessa Brooks, and for some reason she was living in a brothel.
Happened to be living there.
Yeah, I don't know, and then she gave birth.
So he's a whore son.
Yeah, basically. So when she gave birth, her doctor just so happened to be Deacon Frost. Deacon, in the comics, is a white-haired, bearded old man, not the angsty, pretty boy he is in the movie.
This is Stephen Dorff, is Deacon Frost?
Friggin' Dorff.
Okay, so he's our antagonist.
Yes, piece of shit.
Yeah, okay.
I hate him.
Sure.
Yes. You will discover why I hate him later on. But yeah.
Looking forward to it.
But anyway, as you might expect, Deacon killed Vanessa and was going to kill the baby too before he was driven away.
By Morgan Freeman.
Yes.
And he was in the back of the car.
Yes.
Yeah.
All this seems crazy bananas and overcomplicated, but...
Driving Mr. Deacon.
Yes. So I can see why they didn't do this in the movie. This would be very confusing. So here's how the movie dealt with it.
Anybody who ever says, why can't this film be more like the comics, obviously has never read a comic. Yes. Otherwise you would never say that.
Well, that's the thing. The current X-Men movies are actually closer to the comics, and people are going, this is so complicated, I don't know what's going on. Yeah, welcome to X-Men.
Yeah. Well, yeah. A lot of people standing around in poses talking. So, let's begin this. This is the beginning.
Yeah, should I let you read these? Because I'm, terrible at reading it, and I've been talking a lot, so...
Alright, yeah, sure. I would love to read these, because I'm reading these for the first time, so I'll be really discovering this.
Yeah, real-time reactions.
Summer, 1967, trauma ward, 11:21 p.m. I got a female bleeder with complications. That's survival females.
That's normal. That's
complicated bleeders.
Yep.
Balancing his latest attempt at a fresh cup of bad coffee during a shift that had gone into its 21st straight hour of pure white hot hell, Carl Huntley, not Harl Cuntley, his cousin, glanced over at the nurse manning radio communications behind the admissions desk. "What complications?" he asked her. He set the coffee on the high wall separating them, picking a spot between a potted ivy and a ceramic lamb that had obviously been painted by a very young artist who loved rainbows. Some great novelization padding already.
Oh, yeah.
What's on the shelf? Who created it?
Yes.
What were their likes and dislikes?
How long had it been there, though, that he didn't explain?
True. I hope this lamb becomes I hope somebody gets smashed over their head with this lamb later on, like a vampire's hovering over him and he's like looking for something and he sees the lamb and he goes, "The lamb is mightier than the sword," and smashes the lamb over the head. Nurse Hightower picked up his interruption, managed to give Huntley a scathing look of reproach and said calmly, "Explain the nature of the complications, True Care 42. She was twice Huntley's age, a heavy woman used to commanding respect because of her skills and demeanour. She's pregnant," the excited male voiced at the other end said. "Looks like she's ready to deliver at any time here." "Can you check?" Nurse Hightower began. The radio crackled, spat static. "God damn it, Hightower, I'm barely able to hold her throat together. Some sadistic bastard really worked her over good. Advise your trauma team, we're coming in hot and heavy with this one." So, wow, so I get this. So to have a daywalker, you have to have sex in the throat.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Crikey.
In a way. So, in the movie, this is a 30-second scene. The novelization pads it out for 10 pages, mostly giving everyone in the hospital a detailed backstory. They're characters that won't come back again. But then we get something truly weird, possibly a first for us, a fetus protagonist.
Wrapped in the womb, the baby listened to his mother's heart beating. It didn't sound like anything he'd heard before. Well, he got a limited experience in the womb. The rhythm was off, fast, but somehow weak, and it was fading. Her screams still echoed in the amniotic fluid. Those sounds scared him more than anything. He'd never felt an emotion so sharp, so jangling from his mother. The vibrations trapped inside of her womb were less now, but still coasting through the liquid medium.
And
this is really the ultimate backstory, isn't it?
Oh, yeah,
like
from the
all
very
the way back to the very beginning.
they're doing a J.J. Abrams, in the Star Trek movie where it's Baby Spock and Baby Kirk. We just had to know what they were like at that age.
Considering he was conceived in the neck, I'm surprised she had a pregnant belly and not just a big goiter or something.
But when does a fetus stop being a fetus and become a baby?
That's a debate I'm not going to get into.
Yeah, because it's he's about to be born. He's referred to as a baby, but then I call him a fetus, so I don't know. We could be here all day. Anyway, we follow him all the way through his birth. It goes on for quite some time. And
every page is an hour of labour.
Yes, and the realization that his mother is dead and that he's all alone in the world, thus ending the prologue. It's a huge existential crisis for someone who's been alive for 1 minute.
I know, that's a lot. That's a burden. That's a big burden.
So you know why Blade is the way he is. So chapter 1 follows Dennis, a minor character in the film who is given a whole life story in this chapter. Hell, I think he might have more depth than any other character in this book. So he's a B-list actor, and as such, every single thing he experiences, he ties back to some bit part he once played.
Oh, so he's a B-list actor, not just in the film.
Oh yeah, I should have. Yeah,
But his character is also a B-list actor.
Yes, it's a B-list actor playing a B-list actor.
Typecast.
Yeah.
Dennis Toller sat in the passenger seat of the black Mercedes 850 convertible and watched the night-draped city speed by. He was tall and tan enough, that is. Platinum white George Clooney hairstyle really stood out. That his. Oh, but they've written is.
Yeah.
Now that's an actual intern mistake.
Yeah, I've actually left in all the spelling errors. I put the sick next to it.
I thought I was going insane.
Yes.
There we go. His agent suggested he go with the new hairstyle as Clooney was pricing himself out of the market. I mean, Clooney hot on Batman at this stage.
Oh, yeah.
Probably. Dennis hadn't been keen on it at first, but a few more gigs had dropped into his lap lately. So maybe his agent was right. He died as a plague victim on a recent X-Files, been killed on his silk stockings, and showed up as an officer worker in Suddenly Susan. Well, that's the zenith, isn't it?
Oh, he's moving on up. Yeah, there's quite a few spelling errors and sentences that don't make any sense. I love finding those in novelizations because it shows you that no one looks at it.
No one read it, including the 9-year-old it was dedicated to.
So, tonight, Dennis has caught the attention of a woman named Raquel. who is
Raquel?
Raquel.
Raquel.
Yeah, I always say like Rachel, but it's Raquel. I know that.
I will never feel bad correcting you because you send me notes after the show correcting me.
No, do it. If I'm wrong, I want to know I'm wrong.
There we go.
I'm a masochist. Anyway, so Raquel. Raquel, I'll do that. Who is the strong silent type, which Dennis likes because he can talk more about his favourite subject, himself.
And the thing's landing in his lap.
Yes, well.
Hopefully she'll land in his lap, am I right?
She is described as very attractive, wearing tight-fitting clothes, and based on her jewellery and her car, evidently wealthy, which leads Dennis to assume that she must be married and that this is an affair.
Oh, this is Tracy Lords, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Dennis's idea of flirting is calling his penis his heat seeker, which Raquel, I will get this right. Anyway, that person,
Tracy Lords,
Tracy, I got it. Yeah, acts as if this is charming, so you know something's up. He's fascinated with her ultra cool accent, which she can't place.
You gotta generate some heat before you worry about your heat seeker. That's all I'll say. He loved hearing her talk. As soon as he found a bathroom off to himself, he was going to try her accent out, see if he couldn't get it right. Why not see if he can get it right, rather than if he couldn't?
That bothered me too.
Then he would spring it on his agent. Their accent was totally rad.
Which we say rad, so we can't make fun of it.
Totally rad cowabunga pizza.
So Tracy takes him to a meat processing facility.
To process his meat?
Yes.
Okay.
This makes Dennis's upper brain nervous, but his downstairs brain is still pretty keen on her. And her, well, I'm quoting here, twitching hips? Does Odom mean swaying or swinging, perhaps? Anyway.
She might be having a fit.
Yes. They reach a still door. Raquel speaks Latin into the intercom, and they are led into a vampire rave, which Dennis is, of course, not aware of until the sprinklers in the ceiling start raining down blood. Now, I've always wondered if that was human or animal blood. It would make more sense if it's the blood from the animals they slaughtered in the facility, right? Yeah. You know.
Otherwise, it's a waste of blood.
You're just wasting it. Yeah, obviously. Anyway, Dennis is about to be murdered when Blade makes his first appearance. This is pretty cool.
I always got to think about the 9-year-old reading this and him going like, Daddy, I got to go drain my heat seeker. Do you call it a heat seeker? I saw Daddy's heat seeker in the shower. The man stood alone in the midst of the vampires, like an island of jagged rock thrusting up from a cruel and cold sea. He was dressed all in black. His ebony skin, it's like a band-aid, just rip it off really quickly, just come right out with the race stuff.
Yeah, I'm always curious to see how people describe people of colour, which, from what I've read, it's okay to just say black. Fine. Yeah, you don't have to go into abstract details.
Let's not dance around it.
Yeah.
His ebony skin seemed to absorb the strobe lights, and the black-lensed wraparound sunglasses he wore gave nothing away. His features only showed cruel contempt as he gazed at the vampires. I don't think this is great writing. Like, it was an island of jagged rock thrusting up from a cruel and cold sea, so the vampires are cruel, but now they're talking about him and he's cruel.
Yeah.
So, like, they should get along.
Yeah.
Dennis waited, shaking, not knowing what was going on. He didn't see how the hell the man dressed in black could cause a room full of vampires to freeze. Then someone moved, and all hell broke loose in the club.
I think that is a particularly badass passage and a great way to introduce the character. I remember knowing about this scene before I even saw the movie. There was just one of those things that you'd see a lot of clips of.
It's the most memorable.
It's pretty cool. It's very inventive, and it's not like anything else. It's funny how Blade is dressed exactly like that cliche men's rights activist. You know, he's got the long black leather trench coat, wraparound sunglasses, he's wielding a katana. All he's missing is a fedora. But yeah, on him, it looks really cool even now. You know, if they made a new Blade movie or TV series, I can't imagine him dressed any other way.
It's because he's not a fat white neckbeard.
I know, that's the thing. Like, you put it on a black guy, so, that's really cool. Yeah, you just put it on this dorky white kid. Nope, it's just the worst. It's suddenly something that looked cool on one person suddenly looks awful on another. I'm fascinated how that happens. Also, by the way, wraparound sunglasses are the best for protecting your eyes, so it's practical.
Yeah, Tony Stark has them.
He sort of has the ones with the blinders at the side.
Yeah.
So he's kind of doing a halfway, you know.
Well, I like that.
Yeah, it's very cool. So, here we also get the first of the many appearances of Quinn.
Vampires as old and as strong as Quinn were damned hard to kill, and he didn't have time to finish the job now.
He's this big, obnoxious ginger vampire who just will not die. He doesn't even seem that powerful or intimidating, so the whole premise seems a bit Looney Tunes. And, by the way, many people die because Blade simply didn't have the time. Really? Thanks, Blade?
Yeah, it's like you see this guy and it's like, oh, he looks really cool, and then you find out, oh, and he's really bad at his job.
Yes.
He's slacking off right at the beginning of the film.
Now, the following line isn't particularly important, but I'm just including it because it is so terribly written. Try and make sense of this.
Dennis watched in horror as the creature tried to yank free of the silver stakes pinning him to the wall.
So far, fine, right?
He hadn't thought he could survive, but it was only anything human that wouldn't have. He hadn't thought he could survive, but it was only anything human that wouldn't have.
That's like a double negative,
He
triple
hadn't
negative.
thought he could survive, but it was only anything human that wouldn't have. Okay, no.
Yeah, no, he's basically trying to say, surely this would have killed a mere mortal, but clearly this was more than a man. Like, that's basically what he's trying to fucking say, but he can't do it.
Brr.
So angry. Hulk smash. Anyway. So Blade mows down all the other vampires like they're nothing. Apparently can't do that with Quinn. Once the vampires are all murdered, except for Quinn, who is, again, still nailed to the wall and on fire, Dennis is just sitting there in shock.
The officer with the crew cut and the big shotgun pinned Dennis with his gaze. What happened here? He nodded at the vampire on the wall. Who did this? Dennis tried to answer, his actor's soul reacting to all the attention he was getting, but he couldn't come up with one damn line.
Now, apparently, this cop was actually going to be played by Stan Lee, but the idea was scrapped, and really, as I have mentioned before, Blade isn't a Stan Lee character, but he very likely claims he did create him anyway.
I don't know if you can boast about your actor's soul when you've had a guest spot on Suddenly Susan.
Oh, but I know so many people like that who've been in one or two things but act like they're, you know,
They're all that.
they're all that.
And
yeah.
a bag of
A-listers, yes.
potato chips.
That's the word I was looking for. So meanwhile, outside.
Blade watched the ambulance pass, then put his hands in the pockets of the long coat and turned his steps towards the street, walking down the sidewalk. No one noticed him as he lost himself in the circus of thrill-seekers the police were trying to control.
I'm calling bullshit. A heavily armed black guy dressed like he's out of the Matrix, wearing sunglasses at night, is always going to attract attention.
Blade 2, Thrill Circus.
I kind of like that name. I'm going to save that for later. So, Quinn is taken to the hospital.
Got a charred cadaver for you, still warm too. Curtis Webb, forensic pathologist at the Metro Hospital, looked as his assistant wheeled the bagged corpse into the autopsy room. Webb, his boyish good looks drawn in a look of atypical seriousness, wore his pale maroon scrubs like a badge of office. His brown hair was parted neatly on the right, cut every 2 weeks because he liked looking at the same man in the mirror without having to wonder if he needed a haircut. I often look at characters in a movie and I think, how often are you getting that do cut?
You know what, I actually do think about that, but more specifically, Tony Stark's facial hair. Like, does he do that himself, or like that looks like a lot of hard work?
I think he gets that done while he reads a magazine.
He's probably got a robot to do it.
Could be.
Um,
Probably a lady.
um,
I think it's in Carrie Fisher's autobiography talking about. Look this up in case I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure it's like a stepfather or something would get like shaved or something every week or whatever, but he would get a blowjob at the same time. Like he would get both happening.
oh, yeah, as you do.
Yeah, I just think sometimes, like when I'm in that dentist chair, like that would make this far more pleasant.
Oh, good lord. Yeah, I thought you were going to say something about, you know, like continuity movies, like the male actors generally have to get their hair cut like every week or so. But no, that went in a different direction.
I don't think about things like that.
Anyway, so as we are now aware, Curtis is a real, fun guy, living life dangerously. Then we are soon introduced to our female lead, Karen, who once had a relationship with Curtis. She's a hematologist, and, I wonder if that's going to become important later.
I can't see any links from what we've read so far.
Yeah.
Karen Jansen studied the slide through the microscope, feeling Curtis Webb's eyes roving all over her and trying not to lose her temper. Every time a female character is introduced, the guys are like, oh, I'm gonna fuck that neck.
Oh, yeah.
Whenever she argued with him, it only opened up the door to more conversation, and that was the last thing she wanted from him tonight. Well, next to the last thing anyway. Sexual harassment in the workplace, huh?
But, is she hot?
Well, she was 5'8" and trim, kept in shape through good genetics and aerobics. Her skin was milk chocolate against Webb's tanning booth colour. She wore her black hair to her shoulders, and it had a lot of body when she took the time to work at it.
Bit catty.
Her hair had a lot of body, and her body had a lot of hair.
So anyway, all this awkwardness between Karen and Curtis is interrupted when the corpse of Quinn suddenly comes back to life and drains Webb.
The dead man drank thirstily, sounding like a vacuum cleaner as he sucked in the blood.
So, like, the whirring sound of the motor? Because that's all I think about when I think of the sound of a vacuum.
I would think it would be more like a straw at the bottom of a milkshake.
Yeah, that's more accurate. Anyway, remember how I was saying that leaving Quinn alive was really irresponsible of Blade?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the cover says, heart of his hero, but I'm doubting that statement right now. He shows up after Webb has been killed and Karen has been bitten, and she's just lying there, slowly losing blood. And he's all like, "Ride's over," Blade said. "My mistake in letting you live this long."
Maybe he thought that he knew that Curtis was a sex offender. Sexual harasser.
Yes.
So he let the vampire kill him, and then he let it bite Karen for leading him on with all those aerobics.
Yes. Oh dear.
Hey, look, this was 96.
Yeah, different world. So, it was his mistake for letting him live. Yeah, no shit. So Quinn and Blade begin to fight, and until Blade is shot by one of the hospital security guards. In typical fashion, two guys are fighting, but it's the black guy who gets shot and the white guy gets away.
I think it's scary that hospital security guards have guns.
Oh, I think, mall security, primary school security, they've all got guns.
The doctors are all busy. You want me to shoot those tonsils out?
So anyway, Blade knows...
Oh, you shot me. It was my appendix.
Oh, no. So, Blade notices Karen for the first time, and he's spontaneously struck by an Oedipus complex.
Without warning, the old memory ghosted out of the past and touched the hunter, chilling him to the bone. No. His mother's voice hung in his ears, a plea 30 years gone that hadn't saved her. So, Wesley Snipes in this movie is 10 years younger than me. Blade remembered her voice, remembered the smell of all the blood, and remembered all the pain they'd gone through. That's like when, a father goes, "Oh, we just had a baby," when the mother's gone through all the work. Like, all that baby did was just poke his head out and go, "Surprise!" Whereas she was pushing and dying and bleeding.
She was literally bleeding and dying. And it's just... Are you telling me that this guy remembers being born? That's ridiculous. I mean, I draw the line there. Everything else, I can believe.
Everything else checks out so far.
Checks out. But this is simply a step too far, sir.
Yes.
Anyway, so, actually, question. What happened to Wesley Snipes? I meant to look it up. Is he still in prison?
I think he's been released.
Yeah.
But he was in prison for a few years.
But it was like for tax evasion.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ, like Britney Spears has done worse. And
Oh, come on. Don't make excuses for the 1%.
I mean, it's still a shitty thing to do, but Jesus, he was in prison for a long ass time. But it totally derailed the podcast there. So Blade picks up a barely conscious Karen and carries her out of the hospital, jumping out of the window and across to the next building. He heads home with... he heads home. He takes her to his place, I should say. During this time, he admonishes himself angstily.
He admonishes himself for the fact that clearly when somebody's been bitten, they should go to the hospital, and he's taking her away from the hospital.
Yeah.
Yeah, nice going, Blade.
Heart of a hero.
Brain of a scarecrow. Angry at himself, focusing on that old standby emotion that had taken him through so much of his life, he glanced at the unconscious woman and cursed the weakness she'd brought out in him. There was little chance of him saving her, and he wasn't a savior anyway. He was a hunter. Saviors had bright futures. Just ask Jesus. Hunters live for that moment, for the kill.
So, home for him is an abandoned industrial workshop. Why are there so many abandoned buildings in comics? Have you noticed that?
It's this economy.
Always a warehouse or something. So, there...
Well, what are the worst in all books of that is the Hotel for Dogs. Where it's like, oh, here's a whole abandoned hotel. Let's run a hotel for dogs here.
Yeah,
it's like, doesn't anybody own this, want it? These things are worth money, right?
Yeah, well, in Ghostbusters, that was an empty firehouse, but they purchased it in the convention.
Hey, look, they purchased it fair and square, alright? I don't want to hear you saying anything bad about Ray.
Which Ray? Yeah, that's weird, though. When you said Ray, though, I honestly thought of the Star Wars Ray first, so that's weird how marketing can just get into your brain.
I think of them both kissing.
Have you got fan art of that?
Yeah, I've got her floating above his bed while his belt opens and she's like a force ghost.
It's force ghost. Anyway.
And he's like, you don't have to use force, baby.
Oh dear.
He finds a homeless man.
Yes. Yeah, so when he comes back, he finds there's a homeless man has moved in while he's gone. But actually, that's just Chris Christopherson just being himself.
He needs a shave and a haircut. He turned and hobbled out of the shadows, gimlet-eyed, his face lined with wrinkles above the beard, gimlet-eyed, his half sneer as bitter as green persimmons.
Oh, it's so overwrought, isn't it?
He looked old. Green persimmons.
Persimmons is the worst word. They're the worst fruit. I just hate them.
Blade knew other people had made that mistake. Abraham Whistler had given up being a man long ago. Not good for him. And had chosen to become instead an unyielding force. The white gold wedding ring on his left hand was a constant reminder of that commitment. When he spoke, his voice was rough, heavy, and sarcasm as strong as boiling carbolic acid.
He loves these metaphors and similes, doesn't he?
We bringing home strays now?
Yeah, I will say, though, as much as a lot of it is quite overwrought and a bit silly at times, Odom does sound fairly knowledgeable about a variety of things, whether it's medicine or cars or weapons or the lore of this world. He does write with a certain amount of authority, where I noticed other writers, and especially people writing novelizations, they kind of skim over certain things. Like, I don't know what I'm talking about, I'm just going to put the bare minimum in, so, I'll give him that.
He's showboating.
Anyway, meanwhile...
Gaetano Dragonetti, he was half dragon, half spaghetti, studied the photographs in front of him with increasing displeasure. He was old, older even than he looked, and he knew he looked very old. His hands had withered over the passage of centuries, turning into claws, but he didn't mind that. He had power, and power made up for a great many of what other beings might term shortcomings. Parchment skin stretched over skull-like features. He wore his thin blonde hair pulled back, coated with gel to keep it in place. His suit was Italian, a craving he had carried over from his days when he had been more venal. It was no craving now because he was past caring about such trivial things as appearance, but it gave others who were responsible for attending to his appearance direction. The photographs only showed two figures. One, a cowering man sitting in a corner of the club, and the other, a hated warrior dressed in black.
Do you know what venal means?
No.
It means one who can be bribed easily, so I don't know why that word was used there, so yeah, that's an odd choice. The other thing is, you can tell this was written in the 90s by a guy who's probably not that into fashion because he said gel. Clearly, Dragonetti is at least a pomade man.
I would say so.
Anyway, Dragonetti is played by Udo Kier, who is no stranger to playing vampires.
Yeah, where would I know him from?
He was in the Dracula by oh god, I'm forgetting his name now. That German director does all the indie films, like he did Nosferatu as well.
Okay, I don't know.
Although, was it the Andy Warhol Dracula?
I don't know.
They're all blurring into one right now.
I know the name from somewhere.
Yeah, you've seen him in a lot of things. He plays a lot of bad guys and, yeah, vampires, monsters, that sort of thing. He's got a very striking appearance. So here he's described as something barely human, but in the film, his performance is honestly pretty forgettable, which is a shame. So he's sitting at the head of the meeting of the Elder Vampires, which, it's the usual powerful secret society controlling the world from the shadows. I've very rarely seen secret societies done in an interesting way.
No, I don't like it.
It's so boring, and especially with vampires, it's very predictable. The oldest ones are the most powerful. What? Who gives a shit?
And it's all rules, isn't it? You go, I want to be a vampire. That's just sexy, and I can turn into a mist and go into someone's door, and then it's like, oh, here's the society. You got to go rules, rules, rules.
Yeah, it's stupid. My favorite vampires to this day are still the ones from 30 Days of Night, the movie, that is. They're these monstrous, unknowable things. They're brought together out of necessity, but they're not society so much.
They're leg sharks.
They're leg sharks. They're sharks with knees,
They're
if you will.
street sharks.
They're street sharks. So the last member to show up to the meeting is our villain, Deacon Frost.
About time, Deacon.
Yeah, well, he's always fashionably late, you see. As with most vampires in this franchise, I regret saying this.
This isn't recorded, don't worry.
So as with most vampires in the franchise, Deacon is just a trashy club-going pretty boy. He's supposed to be quite old, not as old as the other ones, but he's a few centuries. But he just acts like this smug jerk teenager. And even the other council elders lack that kind of gravitas and otherworldliness you would expect from ancient beings.
Yeah, seriously, the dwarfs were my least favourite in Lord of the Rings.
No, the dwarves were the best.
Oh, I said dwarfs.
Oh, right. I was like, Lord of the Rings, dwarves? Yeah, it took me a moment. I'm with you. Yes.
That's right. No one, even if it is recorded, no one listens.
Then again, I will say this franchise isn't exactly about acting.
It's about bloodletting.
Yes. Oh yeah, right. So, little story. I went to university with a girl who knew a guy that based his whole identity on Deacon Frost. He made that his name. I don't know if it was legally or not, but he just called himself Deacon. He wore fangs. He dressed the same as him, wore his hair the same way. And he sounds like a total knob. Good lord, I wonder if he still does it.
Yeah, no, he might have got... This was 96, and then...
98.
98. Yeah, and then in 99, he based his whole identity on Jar Jar Binks. The brand new character that came along.
That was probably The Matrix, actually, 1999.
No, I think it was Jar Jar Binks.
Oh, well then. Let's find this guy then.
He called himself Jason Banks. These nightclubs of yours are an embarrassment, Palantine said. As we've seen, they draw needless attention to our kind. You know our policy. Your policy, not mine.
Your policy, not mine.
Your policy, not mine. Frost smiled,
like that.
His eyes flashing challenge. Dragon Eddie growled in menacing displeasure. Our livelihood depends on our ability to blend in on our discretion. Well, maybe it's time we forgot about discretion. Unbelievably, Frost got out of his seat and took steps forward, closing the distance between himself and Dragon Eddie without permission. It was an affront of the highest order, and the older vampire knew Frost was well aware of it. Frost continued speaking. We should rule the humans, not running around making back-alley treaties with them. For fuck's sake, these people are our food, not our allies. You're out of line, Frost, Palantine warned. Frost turned to the man, raising a mocking eyebrow. Am I? Maybe I'm just the first person to say out loud what we've all been thinking. Dragon Eddie cut him off. We've existed this way for thousands of years. Who are you to challenge our ways? You aren't even a pureblood. Like matters.
And that's Deacon Frost.
Frost answered.
So this is pretty cliche now, but I think this was the first notable example of that argument of, we're vampires, we should roll over humans and not hide from them. I also don't like that idea of pureblood vampires. It implies that, a mummy vampire and a daddy vampire get together and they make baby vampires.
What does he bite her?
Yeah, baby vampires are essentially human until they hit puberty, like X-Men. The act of biting someone and turning them into a vampire has such strong reproductive metaphors anyway.
Penetrating them.
Yeah, especially if you've read the original Dracula, the sexual metaphors there are, well, they're not even, it's not subtext, it's just text. But it kind of undermines, so the those metaphors are kind of undermined if you can just make babies the normal way. Anyway.
But in the neck.
Yes. Did you know in the novel of Dracula, so he looks basically like Nosferatu, but he has an unruly beard, out of which are poking two long teeth, and the genital metaphor there is very obvious. I'm glad they haven't made a movie with him looking like that, because it sounds gross.
Meanwhile,
Karen has awoken in Blade's bedroom and wanders around investigating. She picks up his katana and nearly hurts herself on the security mechanism.
I thought you were going to say she nearly hurts herself because she picked it up on the wrong end. It started ticking like a bomb and the hilt began rotating. Nervous, she took her hand back. In the next second, a series of razor blades sprung from the hilt.
I think that is a really cool and unique design. And apparently, Karen was also originally going to find a live baby vampire in a jar that was used by Blade and Whistler as a guinea pig to test out weapons to fight vampires. But apparently it was deemed too disturbing. What a shame.
As were his trapped condoms.
Karen ventures outside of the bedroom and further into the workshop to find Blade being treated with a serum to maintain his humanity. It appears extremely painful. Blade and Whistler notice her, and they begin to discuss the truth about vampires.
She shifted her attention back to Whistler. So what do you use then? Stakes? Crosses? Whistler shrugged, answering Karen's question. Crosses don't do squat. Some of the legends are true, though. Vampires are severely allergic to silver. Feed them garlic and they will go into anaphylactic shock. You just need to get these guys down to Pizza Hut. All solved.
So, yes, this is one of the first movies to treat vampirism as a virus. It's, vaguely scientific rather than being a magical curse, like anaphylactic shock rather than just it kills them for whatever reason. Although, in this book, it's implied they don't have reflections, so I think Odin was doing his own thing. Anyway, basically a lot of exposition. I'm just going to run through this. Karen wants to go home, but once in her apartment, she's extremely paranoid. And I have to say, Odin does a pretty good job of creating that feeling of discomfort that chapter was actually, it was pretty intense. A police officer arrives at her door, but he turns out to be a vampire familiar.
A bat in a police hat.
Yes. Karen is rescued just in time by Blade, but it wasn't by luck. He was using her as bait. So.
Oh, always the hunter.
Heart of the hero. At this point, Karen is only just accepting that vampires exist, but continually admonishes herself for talking about it like it's real. And this is something we've seen in a lot of novelizations. People going, "Oh, I can't believe I said vampire," like they're real, even though I've just seen several of them. I feel like in reality, people are quicker to jump on board with whatever crazy concept they've just witnessed. That's why there are so many people who believe in ghosts and aliens, because they see something they can't explain. Suddenly, it's a huge story about extraterrestrials.
I don't know. Like in movies, you forget about the last scene as soon as you're in the next scene. Whereas I would be like, if I was the guy in the club, I'd still be going, and then blood came down from the ceiling, and Tracy Lords was there. And oh my god, you guys, it was crazy.
Well, yeah, the movies tend to be more fast-paced than in real life, because, in real life you just focus on that 30 seconds, which was, impressive to you. They then go to the Black Pearl, which is another vampire nightclub, and, I guess it makes sense that vampires like nightclubs, because they're usually filled with disgusting, trashy people anyway.
Who have viruses.
Yeah. I never saw nightclubs as cool. I remember being in my teens and all my peers were like, "I'm so excited to go clubbing." No.
I'm disappointed it's not Captain Sparrow's Black Pearl.
Yes. Karen and Blade wander through the archives above the club until they encounter Pearl, who you probably remember is the morbidly obese vampire who has been helping Deacon to decode the Book of Erebus.
Not to be confused with Dave Sim's Erebus.
This book is filled with a lot of interesting concepts. They do some really cool things with the vampire idea. And Pearl is certainly memorable. I actually kept thinking that Pearl was in Blade 2 because it seems like such a Guillermo creation. From what I can tell, the basic concept behind his design was that, well, if vampires can't die of disease, they just theoretically just get fatter and fatter without dying. That's so gross. Interesting enough, a similar character appeared in Buffy the same year, although it was a demon, not a vampire. So, weird zeitgeist. Thing is, though, blood contains no fat, so is he eating other food?
Cheeseburgers.
Can vampires do that? Because the documentary, What We Do in the Shadows,
true.
has shown us what happens when vampires eat food, so...
But that was in New Zealand, where people probably eat a lot healthier than in America. I think in America, like, you would evolve to eat cheeseburgers no matter what you were.
Yeah, maybe. So, they interrogate Pearl and find out about the Book of Erebus and the legend of La Magra, the blood god. Which doesn't make sense. You know what La Magra means in Italian or Spanish? The thin one?
The coffee cup.
The thin one.
The thin one.
Yeah. What? Okay. So definitely not Pearl then. Somehow, vampires had forgotten about their old legends and even forgotten how to read their ancient language. Or at least that's what the vampire elders keep claiming, which leads you to believe it's this cover-up, which for a while you go, oh, actually this plot is quite intriguing, but if you've seen the movie, you know that ultimately doesn't pay off. Honestly, there's potential in this story, but yeah, I hate the third act so much, but we'll get there. They kill Pearl with a UV light.
That's what I remember. I do remember that, yeah.
That was so gross. He's got this high-pitched shrill voice, and he's
And like you said, I did actually remember that as being in Blade 2, because it seems like the crazier idea.
Oh, Blade 2's got some crazy... we should... If there is a novelization, I wouldn't mind doing all the Blades.
I'm sure there is.
Yeah. They end up in a fight with Quinn again, and a little girl vampire, because that seems to be a thing people love to do. Whistler comes to the rescue as more vampires show up. Then Blade and Karen race into the subway. Suddenly we get the photo section, one page into the chapter, which is kind of odd placement. It's normally, between chapters.
Gotta pace it, guys. I can't just throw in photos. I'm reading words and now I'm looking at pictures. It's a whole different part of my brain.
Throw me way off. Now, the photos are black and white and crap. The bits of text underneath...
Oh, no, pictures are crap. That's awesome. Look at... This is... Blade on his motorcycle. Wesley Snipes looking absolutely badass.
That's really baller, actually.
He's awesome.
Yeah. But the descriptions underneath each photo feel like someone's mum was describing it. It's very sort of just... I can't even describe, okay, yeah. Blade's motorcycle allows him to roam the streets, what was it? Of all hours, day and night.
Yeah. Like mum's been scrapbooking.
So the serum Blade takes is beginning to wear off, so he must fight his vampiric urges. And apparently it's human hemoglobin substitute.
1,000 questions fired through Karen's head, foremost among them why Blade would need a human hemoglobin substitute. His body should make its own. If it was blood he needed, it was more like a transfusion.
Yeah, this is apparently... She's still not getting the fact that he is not human. Lady, he threw you across a roof, and he jumped across that roof. And he's been doing all sorts of crazy kung fu shit. And you just think, oh yeah, he's just normal.
Sounds like a classic case of transfusion confusion.
Anyway, so she injects him with the substitute right there on the train. All the other passengers have since moved to different carriages.
Because people haven't injected on a subway before.
Yeah, I mean, it's New York. They've probably seen it before. So, then we get to... finally, she gets all this explained to her.
He's a hybrid, Whistler said. Half human, half vampire. I found him when he was 13. Vampirism doesn't manifest itself until puberty and those born with it. He'd been living on the streets, feeding off animals. Took him for one of them at first, almost killed him too, but then I realized what he was. How? I've been hunting these creatures for years. I know what to look for. He didn't completely fit the profile. And you took him in? Yeah, Whistler took his time, scraping the ash from his cigarette into the silver tinfoil tray. Blade's unique, 1 in a billion. He can withstand garlic, silver, even sunlight, even silver garlic. He has their strength, but the thirst came with it. I thought the serum was supposed to suppress that. Time's running out. His body's starting to reject it. So far, all my efforts to find a cure have ended in failure. What happens to Blade then? The thirst overcomes him, just like the others. It's not something he can control, Whistler said matter-of-factly, but she saw the pain in the old man's grey eyes.
So, 1 in a billion. He's probably the only daywalker, which I find really unlikely in a world where vampires can breed the traditional way. You're telling me that a human and a vampire haven't gotten together? I'm thinking about this too much.
Sexy vampires. Why do you hunt them? She couldn't make herself say vampires, not in public. Habit mostly, just like this. He held up the cigarette, then stubbed it out in the tinfoil tray. Smoke curled up in front of him and he blew it away. Had a family once, a wife, 2 daughters, then a drifter came calling one evening. A vampire. He killed them? Whistler nodded, his pale eyes hard and distant. Eventually, toyed with them first, tried to make me choose, understand? Which order they would die in. Swallowing the heavy lump that suddenly formed in her throat, Karen asked, "How did you escape?" "I didn't. Monster let me live." He reached down and slapped the leg brace. He even gave me a souvenir to remember him by. "And now you're using Blade to exact your revenge?" She asked a lot of questions.
Yeah.
Returning her gaze unflinchingly, Whistler said, "Nobody's using anyone. Blade hates them more than I do. We kill as many of them as we can find, but lately it's been getting worse. Because of Frost?" Frost's body count keeps rising. Something's happening in the vampire ranks. Something big. I stake my life. That son of a bitch is at the center of it!
That's just a big block of exposition. And it almost feels like it's this writing technique where you have an interview with your character and you ask them all these questions and they just, answer, straight up. I don't think you should ever do that in a story where you just give all that information straight up. It feels weird just to be like, oh yeah, here's my backstory, here's Blade's backstory. And it's like,
It'd be like in Star Wars if C-3PO went onto the Jawa sandcrawler and he went, "Who are you?" And they went, "We're the Jawas." And he said, "What do you do?" And they went, "We were across the desert looking for scraps." "What do you do with the scraps?" "We sell them to local farms." "Why do you wear the hoods?" "Because it's so hot out there in the desert." Like, you just figure it out.
Show, don't tell.
Yeah.
We saw all that. In that scene, I got everything I needed to know about that world without anything really said.
"Why are you so gold?" "Well, because Darth Vader made me when he was a little boy with a kid, and there were some gold bits put over me."
Anyway, meanwhile...
Deacon Frost watched the translation program running on the laptop computer on the big desk in his bedroom. Pages of the ancient vampire prophecy were being laid bare, bite by bite. The analogy, he thought, was properly fitting. Because vampires bite! That'd be like a male sheep using a laptop computer and being like, "I've got so much RAM."
So yeah, there's a huge emphasis on, vampires really embracing modernity and technology. It's probably, one of the first vampire movies to really do that. But all the technology references in this are funny now, really. They stand out because back then, this was all supposed to be so state-of-the-art, high-tech, ultra-modern coolness, but, even in a movie, the technology seems primitive. Same thing as watching the first Matrix. It's pretty pathetic. Although I think we're at a point with technology now that it's not limited anymore. It serves our needs, pretty much. Where in 1998, computers struggled to do anything more demanding than solitaire. So yeah, it will be interesting to see how tech-based shows like Mr. Robot age.
I think it's more that, when these things sort of hit and they're relatively new, you accept that only a certain amount of the population really knows how these things work. So when you're writing, you get away with speaking with authority, like you were saying before, about surface level kind of things and getting away with it. But then later, when that stuff becomes commonplace, people read it and go, "What a lot of gubbins." Like, you're just making shit up.
It's like when people say the World Wide Web and, the modem, and it's like, that's the thing I've done. Part of my course covers computers and technology, and it does. Those terms are correct. It just, I've seen them misused so often that they seem dorky and wrong. Because technically speaking, the internet and the World Wide Web, two separate things, but I will never say World Wide Web, it just sounds stupid.
I will say the interwebs or the cyber pipes.
Cyber pipes it is. Anyway, we find out that Blade's mother is a vampire. Oh, what a twist. And has been in a relationship with Deacon the whole time. I don't know how she stands him, honestly.
So Deacon is the motherfucker Blade keeps referring to.
Yes.
The slender woman sleeping in his bed stirred restlessly. It was night, and they weren't used to sleeping at night. However, sex could be used as a relaxant or a stimulant if performed properly. You getting this, 9-year-old? He watched her move, shedding the sheets to reveal the nakedness he'd come to relish occasionally, and smother with relish occasionally. She was more than one of his lovers. She was a conquest, a trophy. Something women just love to be referred to as.
Oh, yeah. It later mentions that her breast rested against the top of his head, and all I can think of is boob hat, because I'm very mature.
Better than an ass hat.
It's just not sexy, boob hat. Now that Deacon has the entire Book of Erebus translated, the only thing standing in his way in his quest for power is Dragonetti.
A tin of Dragonetti spaghetti.
Yes, he and Quinn Dragonetti him in the night and murder him on a beach by sunlight.
I remember this too.
Yeah, that's a very memorable scene as well, because all the vampires cover themselves. Like got the I think they put sunscreen on. They also have a motorcycle helmet. Like they're totally covered. So Deacon returns to the council and shows his trophy of Dragonetti's fangs. So Deacon's in charge now, I guess? He's not opposed at all. People are just like, oh, yep, shit, this guy knows what's up.
Very poorly run secret vampire society, in my opinion.
Bunch of pussies. I think it's been so long since anyone challenged them that they just forgot how to react to that. He then goes out in broad daylight, protected presumably by like SPF like 1000 sunscreen, to talk to Blade. It's the usual hero-villain conversation before Deacon escapes, though it is notable for having a bullet time sequence before the Matrix, so that's another memorable moment.
In vampire society, SPF stands for such pointy fangs.
Meanwhile, Karen is working on a cure for Blade when Deacon and Quinn show up at the workshop. By the time Blade returns, Karen is gone and Whistler is dying, which he almost dies in every single movie, so whatever. He tells Blade,
He needs your blood, he gasped with the effort of speaking, blood flecking out with his breath. Blood of the Daywalker, you're part of the prophecy. You're the chosen one.
oh, fuck off with your chosen ones.
Oh.
I hate that trope. If there's one trope I hate more than any other, it's that one.
It's the writer with writer's block, reaching into the bottom drawer of the desk and pulling out the old chosen one prophecy.
So, Whistler is bitten and going to turn into a vampire, so he wants Blade to shoot him. He can't do it, so Whistler shoots himself. Meanwhile, Blade takes the VCR that Deacon left in Whistler's shirt pocket.
Big shirt pocket.
Yeah, and watches it. How high-tech. It's a recording of Deacon basically telling him to meet him at his place. I have your girlfriend. That all seemed like really unnecessary work.
I know, he hired that crew for it cost him a minimum 5 hours hire for all that equipment. So they don't have reflections, but they show up on VCR.
Yeah, so in the early chapter, Blade is thinking to himself, good luck to them watching the surveillance tapes. They won't see anything. But he's in a VCR. Well, I don't understand. You're contradicting yourself, Odom. The movie doesn't contradict itself.
Blade went to the hidden lockers and brought out the heavy-duty armor. It was in pieces, but made a cohesive whole. By the time he was done, he looked like a riot cop. Black leathered Kevlar from head to toe, turning him into a high-gloss shadow warrior.
It sounds like an anime title. High-gloss shadow warrior.
High-gloss shadow warrior.
I don't understand. I've read that several times. I still don't know what he's going for. Anyway. Meanwhile, Deacon is explaining his whole plan for world domination and to Karen, because that's what a good supervillain does. He apparently has telepathy now because he does a Vulcan mind meld with her, showing her the world that he intends on creating. He also shows her his harvesting facility. He has these humans strung up, draining them of their blood. None of that is in this movie, but interestingly enough, that concept does come back to play in Blade 3.
Never throw away a good idea.
Blade shows up and it's a big fight with all the vampires. I find I almost always skip action sequences in books, not even novelizations, just books, because they're often dull. I can't think of a time it's well done because it's such a visual thing.
Especially novelizations, like, you almost can skip the third act because everybody's given up by that point, and it's just like, let's just get through it.
Yeah, and that's the biggest problem with this genre in general, is the first 2 acts quite interesting, it's all set up and style and character moments, and then the third act is just fighting. I always switch off at that point.
Plop, plop, plop.
Blade meets his mother, technically for the first time.
From the outside. Eric, a woman said in a soft voice. His name is Eric. Eric Blade.
Eric Brooks.
Blade whirled around, bringing the Mac up in spite of the confusion that suddenly filled him. Mother! The word was torn from his lips before he knew it. His hands trembled, holding the pistol at the woman's chest. Lithely, impossibly, she rose from the stainless steel coffin. And she was his mother, looking just as she had in the driver's license picture 30 years ago. He knew immediately there was only one way that could happen. Plastic surgery.
Oh, shit. Also,
Botox.
why do they have coffins? Like, they're supposed to be all modern and cool, but they still have the coffin thing going on?
They should have race car beds.
Yes!
Haltingly, he took a step back. He didn't know if the name was his or not. The orphanage where he'd first grown up had assigned one to him. When he got out of on his own, he rejected it, not choosing a name until after Whistler found him and trained him for a mission.
So that makes a lot of sense, that a teenage boy would pick the name Blade for himself and think it was cool. That's just such a teenage boy thing.
I need to think of a new name, like a cool internet name.
Yeah, I'm generally just use my name online, and even when it came to, transitioning from a woman to a man, was I going to change my name? I'm like, no, my name's Courtney, it's weird going by anything else.
People on our Facebook page would like to give us cool names, code names, comic Marvel names. Go for it.
Well, I've already got the surname going on, I'm already a Coulson, so I'm sorted. And Coulson is a cool name. So, I don't know where I am now. Oh, right there, haha. Deacon.
Right there.
Yeah, right there. So, Deacon shows up to gloat. He tases Blade unconscious. I didn't know you could do that. And he and Karen are taken to an excavation site where the Temple of the Night was hidden.
The Temple of the Night.
That's what I thought every time I saw it. So, great minds ride a bike. Karen is separated from Blade, taken by Quinn to be thrown into a pit.
I once bit this guy, ripped his throat out, bled him dry. I figured he'd turn right, only the guy didn't. He was stuck in some kind of zombie state. For whatever reason, some of them reject the change. Pathetic, really. Poor fuck's completely stupid and they'll feed on anything given the chance. Animals, corpses, even other vampires. Did Deacon say that? Because I read it wrong if he did.
Oh, it's Quinn, who does sound like a jerk as well, but, not as much as Deacon. So, it turns out the creature in the pit is none other than Curtis. He's basically a zombie, he's decomposing, but he's still alive. He's vaguely lucid, and, that is really another memorable concept in this movie, and he's pretty creepy in the book, too. Karen kills him with one of the many bones scattered in the pit and climbs out. Now, Deacon...
Chokes on a chicken bone.
Yes. So, now, Deacon explains La Magra.
Smiling, Frost stepped closer. After tonight, there won't be another dawn. La Magra isn't a physical being. He's a spirit that needs a host. Cold fear raced through Blade as he realized the implication of Frost's words. You, the hunter said. Of course, Frost agreed. Who else? It's destiny, baby. Oh. This was meant to be. Every moment of it.
So, Deacon does indeed become the host for La Magra, and this is where the movie falls apart. Up until now, the movie seemed to want to be grounded and realistic for the most part, and then they throw it all out the window and end with magic. And it's not properly explained either, I'm not leaving much out about La Magra here, that's all we know. Blood god, that's it. What does he do? I don't know.
Dance magic?
Yes, it was dance magic.
Is it jump magic?
Yeah. I always found the ending jarring. Not only does it go against the established rules of the world, but it's just anticlimactic. I was curious to see how this scene would be written in the book, because in the movie, La Magra was supposed to essentially be a blood tornado. So imagine this tornado swirling around, but with Deacon Frost's face and jerk voice coming out of it. There is actually footage of the sort of the
like the test footage.
Test footage of that scene.
I have seen that.
It's awful.
I have seen that alternate version with the blood tornado.
They just didn't have the technology to do it right. So instead, we have a lame kung fu sequence. Now, Stephen Dorff is no martial artist, and this is probably why Jet Li was first considered for the role. That would be a very different movie then. But the biggest problem is that Deacon is supposed to apparently be inhabited by a god now, but you don't get a sense of that at all. He's the same. There is nothing different about him.
God's in us all, and there's nothing different about me.
So, I was expecting, Apocalypse. Apocalypse in that movie was actually, that's what I expect to happen. That's a good example of what should have been, but I guess they didn't have the technology or imagination or anything. So, more fights ensue. Blade finally kills Quinn and his own mother. Now, I would have included some text of that, because, you'd think that's a pretty...
Killing your own mother, that's huge.
Yeah, no, neither of these scenes have the pay-up that the setup promised. He just... Oh, yep, shot Quinn. Oh, he's Ash now. Oh, hey, Mom. Oh, so sad, but shoot ya. Yeah, moving on. He doesn't even... Nothing. No reaction. So, Blade then fights Deacon. He defeats him with the EDTA capsules. Now, this was the serum that Karen had been working on, which doesn't work as a cure yet. However, it is an effective weapon.
In this instance, EDTA stands for Edited Dumb Third Act.
Yes.
The effects of the EDTA in Frost's system was immediately apparent. The vampire's face turned crimson around the embedded capsule, and the crimson spread, taking in all of his head. He clawed at his throat as his head started to swell, doubling in size, then tripling like a blood-engorged tick. Now, this is something that usually happens below the waist, now happening above the neck.
Oh, shit. I once saw a video of a blood-engorged tick injected with bleach, which, if you're curious, cause it to foam, then explode.
Crikey.
Yeah, it was really screwed up. And also, it was like a young girl who did it. I can hear people talking in the background, it's really casual, and this girl's just, talking to the camera, and she sounds like Mabel from Gravity Falls. So, like a very young voice, but she's probably a teenager. And yeah, she just gets this syringe of bleach, and there's this huge tick dragging itself along the ground. And I don't know why this exists. The internet is weird.
Yes, if you don't take away anything else from today, the internet is weird.
Anyway, we also finally get the line, "Some motherfucker's always trying to ice skate uphill."
Which is what Odom's 9-year-old son said at every possible opportunity the days after reading this book.
Which I think is fantastic. However, many butthurt fans feel this line, improvised by Wesley Snipes, detracted from what was in their eyes an otherwise serious and perfect movie. Honestly, I think it's a testament to Snipes' ability to say something that ridiculous on the fly and still make sense and sound really cool. Anyway, the day is saved, all the vampires are dead, and Karen and Blade reach the outside just as the sun is rising.
Karen stood behind him, shielding her eyes against the morning glare as she bathed in the sun's rays. She looked whole, healthy. "I never imagined I'd be so happy to see the sunrise," she said, then turned to glance at Blade. "I need to get back to the lab if I'm going to cure you." "Keep your cure," he said. "It's not over."
And that's it, they part ways, and there's thankfully no forced romance between them, which is, surprisingly progressive.
And that sounds like the end, but it's not. There's a little epilogue which is happening in Moscow right now.
Right now.
Now.
Right this minute.
So it's too long to read the whole thing, but what's the setup here?
Basically, you've got this couple walking along in the, very snowy night. They're all rugged up, and they're trying to light this cigarette. They ask a guy for a light, and he shows up.
Hands moving so quickly, the gangster didn't have a chance. The hooded man opened his mouth and exposed gleaming fangs. The gangster had only a second to realize the doom that reached out for him. Then his throat was torn out, staining the snow crimson in a gust of arterial flow. I would think it would be a gush.
Yeah.
Even as the gangster fell, the hooded man turned his attention to the woman. She screamed and tried to run. The hooded man had her before she'd gone 2 steps. His speed incredible. She turned her face to him, prey frozen in hypnotic fear of the predator. Instead of biting her, though, he plucked the cigarette from her lips. "Catch you at a bad time, comrade?" a voice behind him asked. That'd be like if somebody from another country came in and said, "G'day, cobber," to me.
That'd be annoying.
Pissed. The hooded man turned easily, chuckling at the irony of the situation. He heard the footsteps of the woman tearing out behind him, shushing through the snow. I would think slushing.
Yeah.
He recognized Blade easily. The hunter stepped out of the shadows, drawing his great sword with slow deliberation. Taking a Zippo from his pocket, the hooded man flicked it to life with equal deliberation. As he bent his head to breathe flame into the cigarette, the glow revealed his face. His whiskey-aged voice was exactly the way Blade remembered. "Well, this is going to be interesting, isn't it?" Whistler asked.
Oh, shit. He's a vampire now. Somehow he's still alive. What?
And now Blade has to make a hard decision. Will he kill his friend? Well, considering he killed his mother, yeah.
Yeah, he'd probably do it and not even think twice about
And
it.
he'll probably say something about motherfuckers ice skating. Here's a little bit about the author. Shall we hear this?
Alright.
Mel Odom lives in Moore, okay? Okay, yeah.
Okay.
Sure. And has written dozens of books in a variety of fields. He lives in Oklahoma, so he writes books in fields.
Ah.
That makes sense. It's sunny.
Yeah.
Nice. Hope he wears a hat and
Yeah.
some SPF. Serious die-hard collectors will remember him as the author. You know those serious die-hard Mel Odom collectors.
Yes.
Will remember him as the author of Heart of Darkness. That's HARTE : of Darkness.
I couldn't find anything on that.
A 4-issue comic series about a vampire private eye who worked occasional jobs for the Roman Catholic Church. Where's my Heart of Darkness TV series? Netflix?
Wasn't that basically Van Helsing with Hugh Jackman?
When he's not writing, Mel attends lots of sports activities. So he's not a nerd.
Yeah.
He's a jock.
Yeah.
Cheering on his children. He has 5 of them. Well, we should be cheering on his virility.
Oh, shit.
With his wife Sherry, and has even been brave enough to take on the coaching mantle from time to time. He also loves to travel and hangs out on the internet too much, probably surfing the cyber pipes. For those interested, his email address is denim, DENIM, byte, BYTE. There's those bytes again, at AOL.com.
So probably doesn't exist anymore.
Christ, we could have had him as a guest.
The dedication to his son I thought was worth reading as well. I don't know if you want to...
I don't really. However, here we go, but just...
not the whole thing.
Just the end. Oh no, that's his acknowledgement.
Oh, I'll read it. I know.
No, it's too sweet.
Oh, I thought... Yeah, okay. Yeah, we're too cruel. We're too cruel. That would be... Leave the sanctity of his fatherhood.
We've said enough. So there you go. That's Blade. Got to ask you, as I always do, was the book better? I think probably not.
No, you know what? The first few chapters I was thinking, maybe this could actually be better than the movie. No, the movie's still better.
If you can hear me typing, I'm looking up if there's any Amazon reviews. Did you check this?
Oh, yeah, I didn't put them in. What an idiot.
That's all right. I'll do it live.
Yeah, there's nothing much.
Blade kicks ass. Blade was a kick-ass book, completely different from the movie. The movie had more fighting, and you didn't get to see the true meaning of the novel. The movie described Blade as a cold-blooded slayer with no mercy. The novel describes Blade as someone who risks his life every day to save the human race, in spite of the fact that the human race thinks he's a murderer and wants him dead. He uses his powers to serve and protect the very species that despises and fears him, our own. He has the power of an immortal and the soul of a human and the heart of a hero.
Oh, we found him! We found the Deacon Frost guy who based his whole life on Deacon Frost.
Deacon Frost rules. I love both the book and the movie. I was really surprised at how the book captured the manic energy of the movie and the complexity of the characters. The book really delves into the deeper areas of the characters characters. Like the Rainbow Lamb. Remember the Rainbow Lamb?
Shit.
The Lamb-tagonist, the Rainbow Lamb-tagonist, the Blade Tree, Thirst of the Rainbow Lamb. The book really delves into the deeper areas of the characters and captures the feeling that it's hard not to admire Frost while you're hating him. He's an awesome villain. Even if you haven't seen the movie, read the book, it's an absolute must for anyone who's a fan of Anne Rice, or white rice, or brown rice, or long grain rice, or vampires in general, as well as anyone who wants to read a well-crafted piece of literature, wants to dress up as Deacon Frost and walk around in the summer and in a big black coat.
And fuck Deacon Frost.
And say things like, about ice skates, motherfuckers.
Blade is the tightest book you will ever want to read. What's
The movie and the book are amazing. I've been watching the movie a hell of a lot of times. That's a lot of times. And you'll also like the book. Buffy versus Blade, Blade all the way, because he's the #1 Slayer. Well, that's conclusively put an end to that argument.
Yeah.
The film kicked, and so does the book. I'm going to kick the book over my balcony in like about 5 minutes from now.
There's a lot of reviews, all 5 stars mostly, and yeah, they're all praising it. They're actually fairly cohesive, just misguided.
Yeah, so it's, look, there you go. I mean, that's Blade. That's the story. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, I was going to say that rewatching the film was an interesting experience because I realised how much the action genre has evolved. You know, I think there was a period there in the 90s and early 2000s where it was all about the special effects and the martial arts, and story and performance took a backseat. You know, almost everyone in the movie is a bland, archetypal character. There's no real depth or personality. You know, anyone... Yeah, I mean, Blade is a pretty cool character himself, but he's that usual, you know, strong, silent type, toxic masculinity archetype. It's just... Yeah, it's pretty cliche. But modern action, and especially superhero movies, are much more clever now, you know. Audiences seem to enjoy those relatable human moments just as much, if not more so, than the action sequences. I mean, something like Civil War, you've got, what, like a core cast of a dozen characters, and you feel like you know them really well. You know, I think each of them probably have about 5 minutes screen time, but you go, yep, they've had a whole arc, I'm following it, they're really different from each other. Blade is just bland and unpredictable.
I think it's because the fans of these movies don't find characters like Blade relatable because the characters are really, like, muscular and tough and cool. Whereas, like, people think that Deadpool's the best movie because it's like, he's a superhero, but he also jerks off all the time, so that's something I can really relate to.
To a pink unicorn.
Yeah, they're like, I'm just so glad that finally it's someone like Deadpool arrives who, like, thinks about jerking it as much as I do. And then they just go, this is the best movie ever made. And then they go and watch something like Batman, Superman, and they're like, why weren't they thinking about jerking it or jerking it off or jerking it to random things?
Although, on a more serious note, there is nothing relatable about Batman or Superman, especially in the movies, but I was actually going to say Ant-Man, you know, when he meets Captain America. Like, that was so relatable.
Yeah.
He's just a normal guy.
But why wasn't Ant-Man just, like, when he turned really big going, oh, I'm going to need like a crane to pull this one because my donger is so
my heat seeker
so big, you know.
Oh shit.
And why didn't like Spider-Man like shoot a sticky web and go, that's the first time I've had to use my wrist, you know? Like, I just think everyone would love superhero movies more, and everything would be so much cooler if they were jerking it all the time, like Deadpool.
So you want Karen to have woken up in Blade's room like, oh man, this is sticky. Oh, that's sticky. Oh, this is sticky.
Yeah, because, you know, Deadpool, like, in some way...
Masturbation is the key to accessibility.
Because you take out, like, when Deadpool talks about dicks and stuff, and it's really, like, a very cliched origin story with a boring villain. Mm-hmm. But the thing is, he talks about masturbating a lot. Like, he really is just... there's something on his mind. Dick Pool, am I right?
Yeah.
So, yeah. So I think... that would make it a lot better if Bruce Wayne just pulled his foot a little bit, you know, occasionally. Maybe Superman could relax by...
destroys the building.
Yeah. by blowing off his super spam shotgun occasionally. That's all I'm saying, because I know, I'm no critic, but I know what makes a film good.
So it's nothing to do with character depth or humor?
No, it's just
masturbation.
having a Batman. Having a bat, comma, man. So there we go.
Is that only sign-off tagline?
I think we've cracked the Da Vinci Code.
Yeah.
The Dick Vinci Code. Am I right, Deadpool? Yes, there we have it, Blade. So thanks so much, Courtney, for dragging me out of retirement to read this wonderful book.
Just when I think I'm over, they keep pulling me back in.
These motherfuckers keep pulling me back in uphill ice skating
Dragonetti.
championships 2016.
Is this how all our podcasts they collapse?
Look, if you can just... Oh, yeah. Go to Facebook, fruitlesspursuits.com.
No, don't do that.
Go to all... Yeah, but people don't,
Yeah,
so why bother?
fuck you.
Do what you want. You will anyway. So all you got to do is say the thing and we're done.
Catch you on the flips.
Jumanji.